let me get started, sir, by just asking what is the latest situation in the South China Sea? And I guess a more direct question is, are there still Chinese vessels in that disputed area?
Well, as far as I know, as the latest maritime control is 9 May 2021, the area task force reported the presence of 287 Chinese vessels. Well, okay, that's news to me.
And to your point, Secretary, we'll need to obviously dig a little bit deeper and get a little bit more information on that. What would be, though, theoretically, the next step then from your office when it
Well,
comes to that?
if in fact once I the coordinates and more data on this from the national task force, they then tell me, nobody else, and then I prepare my diplomatic protest. This is essential because you never let any incident pass.
Can we then say unequivocally that whatever is happening with the South China Sea issue will not affect other parts of this relationship? I'm going to bring up the vaccine relationship there, of course, and that supply coming from China. The president has said it will not affect that, for the record.
Yes, I certainly hope that. It depends on how they behave and how we behave, I guess. So far, we've been responsible, they're the ones who make the appearance in our EEZ, and let's hope it doesn't escalate from there. China's enormous economy is essential to a post-pandemic recovery for the entire globe. Let's face it, that's a 400 million to 600 million middle-class domestic market of shopaholics. And
right.
Every country needs that. That includes the United States, by the way.
What does it say, though, that since that you've lodged a protest and, of course, that tweet a few weeks ago, that there are more ships there? Like, what do you think that reflects?
Well, I guess I'm going to have to bring it up with him. This is why is it necessary to have, they say it's their traditional fishing. That's okay. When the 220 appeared, the Chinese ambassador explained, this is traditional fishing grounds. Well, that's fun. That's wonderful, I said, but there's this principle of law. Tradition always yields to law. So that's it. Now, are they fishing there? They may well be fishing, but I said, don't you think they're overfishing by now? They haven't moved from there. And then they started moving on.
Right.
So in short, when the Chinese say we're there for fishing, they actually defeat any intention to claim it. Because it can, if you're there to fish, you're definitely not exercising possession, hoping possession, which is 9/10 of the law, will eventually ripen into right.
When it comes to the VFA with the U.S., let's turn to that. What's the status on those negotiations, and what is your preference of what happens there?
Well, I think it's going very well. There are technical issues. Remember, this is not a review of the VFA, but of a technical agreement having to do mostly with the chapter on jurisdiction. There have been some. So now I can tell you that most of the disagreements have been resolved. There were also what you might call turf wars, and DFA, DND, state, Pentagon. We all resolved that. I mean, why would we let that get in the way of anything? So it's almost there.
Is the hope then from the Philippines' perspective, in terms of vaccine supply, are you hoping that the Americans will supply more than the Chinese, or does it matter where it comes from?
No, there's no. I must tell you this, and I say this in real candor. That when I was with Wang Yi, he came over and he said he was going to donate 500,000 doses of Sinovac, and I said we can buy more. And he said, no, we don't do that. We need it for ourselves. The reason why we donate is we dictate the amount because it's a donation. So they're not in that game, and that's it.
Oil exploration and the negotiations between the Philippines and China. Can you give us a status where that is?
Yes, well, I can't tell you too much because then it might start something in the stock market. And I guess being a lawyer, a corporate lawyer, I know that you can be charged for stock manipulation. So I don't want to say too much except for this. When Wang Yi and I first met, it was in Davao, I think in Davao or in Manila, and there was this question about an MOU on the development of oil and gas. And I got a draft. I didn't like it. I don't know who prepared it. I threw it away and I made my own draft. And in that draft, it said, you know, no one gives up anything by doing this. It's a purely economic or technological endeavor. And then he hadn't seen it yet, Wang Yi. And then he said, so are we going to do the memorandum of agreement on oil and gas? I said, yes, here it is. And he said, okay. And he signed it. And so and that act of trust really touched me. Then I signed that.
Sir, just a little bit more on the exploration deal. And I know you mentioned that you can't go into too much detail right now because I would imagine there is progress. That's what I get. But it's also not finalized yet. What would be the next steps to look forward to, just generally speaking, as we look ahead to hopefully it would be a final deal?
Well, the thing is that I think we've settled. One is the two commercial enterprises, CNOC and the Filipino one, are talking to each other. You first do that. Okay. When they come to some agreement on that, then it goes back to me. And then I will do the executive agreement on that and then submit it. Among the issues raised, does anyone give up anything? No. That issue is shunted aside and we just proceed on the basis of the development of oil and gas. In fact, almost entirely, all the production will go to the Philippines for one simple reason. It's in the Philippines already.
I would imagine then, based on what you just said there, Secretary, the sticking points based on, well, one firm is CNOC, the other one, of course, is an unnamed Philippine group there. The sticking points are commercial and not political?
It's a commercial venture. And then at one point, Wang Yi said, no prejudice clause. I crafted it right there and there. Not just what is in writing, but any action made by either party, by either side. I can give, this is not a good example, but I'm not a technician, but let's say the technology has to be of one country rather than the other. And most of the participation is from that country. That fact can never be cited by either side to support its claim or to oppose it. In short, no prejudice. It's all-encompassing and deeply detailed.
And not that you're guaranteeing anything on the timeline then. I would imagine the hope is to get this deal done as soon as possible. I mean, would it be too hopeful to expect this deal to be done by the end of the president's term, or is that a little bit too close already?
I could go to jail for that. No, I mean, yeah.